The council chamber stretched wide and tall, built to hold representatives from 47 different species. Taemin stood at the human delegation's platform, his hands clasped behind his back. Next to him, Jiwoo kept her military posture perfect, while Hyenwoo reviewed data on his tablet. They had been summoned here like so many times before. The insectoid Cress clicked his mandibles together, sound that echoed through the chamber. His compound eyes reflected the cold blue light as he looked down at the humans from his elevated seat. Next to him sat Velner, the amphibian counselor whose skin changed colors with his moods. Right now, it displayed satisfied purple patterns. The council has reviewed the current arrangement with humanity, Cress announced. His translator device made his voice sound mechanical. We have determined that adjustments must be made for the greater good of galactic civilization. Tommen had heard these words before. Greater good always meant more demands on humanity. More ships. More soldiers. More engineers, working for free. He kept his face calm and waited. Velner's skin shifted to a deeper purple as he spoke. Humanity will transfer 70% of your military fleet to council control within 30 days. Your scientists will be reassigned to projects we deem necessary. Your engineers will continue maintenance work across all council territories without compensation beyond basic supply provisions.
Ow.
Around the chamber, other species watched. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked indifferent. A few seemed pleased. The Torvath representative was already calculating how many human technicians he could request. The Grillix admiral was nodding, probably thinking about the human-modified engines that made his fleet the fastest in council space. GOS. Jaw tightened, almost invisibly. Hyenwoo stopped scrolling on his tablet. Taemin simply listened. Additionally, Cress continued, humanity will accept council observers on Earth and all human colonies. These observers will ensure compliance with council regulations and monitor human activities. You have 48 hours to signal your acceptance of these terms. The chamber fell silent. Every species present knew these terms were harsh. Some might even call them occupation demands. But humanity had always bent before. They were useful, quiet, and they never caused trouble. Why would this time be different? Taemin looked at Jiwoo. She gave the smallest nod. He glanced at Hyenwoo, who closed his tablet and met his eyes. Then Taemin turned back to face the council. "You understand," Taemin said clearly. "Thank you for making your position clear." Cress leaned forward slightly. "You understand? That is all?" "Yes, we understand what you are asking. We understand what you believe humanity should accept. Thank you for your time." Taemin bowed respectfully, the traditional gesture of his people. Jiwoo and Hyenwoo did the same. Then, without another word, the three humans turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps made soft sounds against the polished floor. No arguing. No pleading. No negotiation. The council chamber buzzed with confused chatter as the doors closed behind them. In the corridor outside, other human staff members waited. They had been listening to the broadcast. Every face showed the same quiet determination. "Send the signal," Taemin said to his communications officer. "Yes, Ambassador." The young woman pulled out a secure device and entered a code. Across human space, on every station, every ship, every colony, a message appeared on secure human channels. Just 2 words, protocol silence. Back in the council chamber, Cress looked at Velner. That was easier than expected. "Perhaps too easy," Velner said, his skin flickering with uncertain yellow patterns. "They did not even attempt to negotiate." "They never do," Cress replied. "Humans are practical. They will comply as they always have. They understand their place in the galactic order." A junior counselor, a small mammalian creature named Rill, spoke up hesitantly. "Should we not be concerned?" Their response was unusual. "Nonsense," Cress clicked. "Humans are dependable workers. They know they need the council more than the council needs them. Where would they go? What would they do? They are integrated into every system, every station. They are part of the structure now." This was true. Over the past decades, humanity had spread throughout council space. Not as conquerors or explorers making grand claims, but as the people who fixed things. Human engineers kept the stations running. Human doctors staffed medical facilities. Human soldiers fought in council wars. Human scientists solved problems. Other species found too tedious or too difficult. They had become invisible in their usefulness. Everyone used human services, human technology, human labor, but few species actually thought about the humans themselves. They were just there, like gravity or air, a constant presence that required no consideration. On the human delegation ship, leaving the council station, Taemin sat in his chair and looked out at the stars. Gi-woo stood beside him. "Do you think they realize what they have done?" she asked. "No," Taemin said quietly. "They see us as tools. Tools do not have breaking points in their minds. Tools do not choose to leave. How long before they understand?" Hyen-woo asked from his station. "Days perhaps, maybe weeks. It depends on how quickly things start to fail." Taemin pulled up a display showing human positions throughout council space. Thousands of dots marking human workers, human stations, human technology. But by then, it will be too late. Gyu nodded. 5 years of preparation. Moving supplies. Building gates back to human space. Creating independence. And they never noticed. "They noticed nothing," Taemin agreed. "We were too useful to watch. Too quiet to fear. They forgot that useful things become necessary. And necessary things hold power." The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward the human defensive perimeter. Behind them, the council celebrated their successful negotiation. Ahead, humanity prepared to close its doors to a galaxy that had taken them for granted one too many times. The signal had been sent. Protocol silence was active. And across council space, humans began to pack their things and go home. Captain Sang-hee watched the evacuation charts on her command screen. Green dots representing human ships moved in perfect coordination across the display. Every dot was a vessel carrying humans home from council space. Thousands of ships, millions of people, all moving according to a plan 5 years in the making. "Status report," she said calmly. "Evacuation Fleet Alpha is 70% complete," her first officer reported. "Earth transports are loading the last civilian groups from the outer stations. Fleet Beta is extracting personnel from the medical facilities. Fleet Gamma is pulling our people from the industrial zones." Everything was proceeding on schedule. On the main viewport, Earth hung in space, beautiful and blue. Soon all her children would be home. On Research Station Meridian, scientist Yoonji sealed the last container of equipment. Around her, other human researchers worked quickly and efficiently. They took their personal items, their research notes, their experimental equipment. They took everything that belonged to them, or that they had created. What they left behind were empty rooms and dark screens. The station's alien inhabitants barely noticed at first. Humans were always working somewhere, always busy. It took several hours before a Torvath supervisor realized the entire human section had gone silent. "Where are the human technicians?" the supervisor demanded, clicking into the empty laboratory. "The quantum processor needs calibration," no one answered. The humans were gone. And the quantum processor, designed and built by human hands, sat inactive. The Torvath supervisor tried to access the maintenance protocols. The system asked for authentication codes that only the humans knew. Engineer. Minho stood in the central hub station's main engineering bay. This station was the largest in council space, a massive structure that connected trade routes across 5 sectors. He had worked here for 8 years. He knew every system, every circuit, every peculiarity of the aging infrastructure. He patched his personal computer into the station's network one final time. Not to sabotage anything, not to destroy data. He simply downloaded every maintenance log, every repair protocol, every schematic he had personally created. The originals had already been deleted from the station's computers weeks ago, part of the quiet preparation. Minho, his assistant, called. "Transport is ready?" "One moment." Minho typed a final command. The engineering bay's automated systems would continue running for approximately 6 weeks. After that, without human maintenance, they would begin to fail. Small failures at first, then cascading problems, nothing violent, nothing sudden, just the natural entropy of complex systems without knowledgeable hands to tend them. He picked up his bag and walked to the transport without looking back. Across council space, similar scenes played out. Dr. Biora left the disease control center, taking with her decades of research on the Nethic plague vaccine program. The vaccine would continue to work for those already inoculated, but without her knowledge. No new batches could be synthesized when the current supply ran out. Admiral Donghan extracted his entire tactical staff from the Council military headquarters. They boarded ships carrying data cores containing strategy algorithms, battle simulations, and defensive protocols. The Council's military AI had been trained using these systems. Without updates and maintenance, it would continue to function, but would become increasingly outdated and inflexible. Sujin, who designed the quantum banking computers that processed galactic financial transactions, carefully packed her notebooks. She had never uploaded her complete design philosophy to any council database. There were elements of the system that existed only in her understanding. Without her, the system would work until it encountered an unexpected problem. Then it would freeze, uncertain how to proceed. On every station, every outpost, every facility where humans worked, the pattern repeated. Humans packed. Humans departed. Humans took their knowledge with them. They did not explain. They did not announce. They did not warn. They simply left. The Council's communication network began showing strange gaps, small at first. A relay station here. A transmission hub there. Nothing critical. But the gaps were growing. The humans who maintained these systems were gone, and they had taken their expertise with them. A Grillix fleet commander tried to restart his ship's modified engines after a routine maintenance stop. The engines hummed, but would not fully engage. He called for the human engineering team that had installed the modifications. The communication went unanswered. He tried the backup codes. Access denied. The modifications were locked behind authentication systems only the human engineers could bypass. His fleet sat motionless in space, waiting for help that would not come on Earth. Sang He coordinated the final transports. The evacuation was 95% complete. Only a few specialty teams remained in council space, finishing last-minute tasks. Message from the council, her communications officer reported. They are requesting status updates on multiple human-run facilities. They sound confused. Do not respond, Sang He ordered. All human channels are now closed to council frequencies. Understood, Captain. Sang He pulled up the master timeline. In 3 more days, every human would be back in human-controlled space. The borders would seal, the gates would close, and humanity would be alone again, separate from the council that had used them for so long. She thought about her brother, who had died fighting in a council war that meant nothing to humanity. She thought about the colonies forced to accept toxic waste dumping because the council deemed it necessary. She thought about the years of being treated as useful tools, rather than equal partners. No more. The last transport docked with her command ship. The final humans stepped aboard, carrying their belongings and their dignity. Sang He gave the order. The massive fleet began moving toward the Sol System's defensive perimeter. Behind them, council space continued operating on momentum and habit. Systems ran because they had been running. Stations functioned because they had been functioning, but the hands that maintained them were gone. The minds that understood them had departed, and slowly, quietly, inevitably, things began to break. Not with explosions, not with drama, just the simple, patient decay of complex systems left untended. The humans were going home, and they were leaving silence behind them. 3 weeks after the humans departed, Counselor Kress sat in an emergency session that had lasted 6 hours. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of stress that he could not control. Around the chamber, representatives from various species argued, blamed, and demanded solutions. The life support systems on 17 Torvath stations are failing, the Torvath ambassador shouted. Our people are dying. We need human technicians immediately. The Grillix fleet is still stranded. another voice called out. 200 ships cannot move. The engines will not restart without proper codes. Our medical facilities have lost power, a third representative added. We cannot treat patients. We cannot perform surgeries. Vellner's skin flashed through colors too quickly to read. He had never seen the council in such chaos. Silence, he commanded, using his amplification device. Silence. We must approach this systematically. The chamber quieted, though tension hummed through the air like electricity. Junior analyst Rill Vellner said, "You have been studying the human departure. Present your findings." Rill, a small mammalian creature who had only recently joined the council staff, approached the central podium nervously. She had spent 3 weeks compiling data, and what she had discovered terrified her. "Honored council members," she began, her voice shaking slightly, "I have analyzed the scope of human involvement in council operations. The results are deeply concerning." She activated a holographic display. It showed the council's infrastructure as a vast network of connected systems. Then, one by one, nodes began turning red. These red markers indicate systems that were maintained, operated, or designed by humans. As you can see, they represent approximately 68% of our critical infrastructure. The chamber erupted again. 68%? Impossible. Humans were just workers. They were support staff. They could not possibly be that essential. But Rill continued, pulling up specific examples. Dr. Biora was the chief researcher on the Nethic plague vaccine program. She personally oversees the synthesis process for 14 different species-specific variations. Without her, we have approximately 8 months of vaccine supply remaining. After that, the plague will begin spreading again. Rill pulled up another file. Admiral Dung Hain created the strategic algorithms our military defense network uses. He updated them monthly based on new threat assessments. Without these updates, our defense AI cannot adapt to changing situations. It will become predictable and vulnerable. More data appeared. Sujin designed the quantum banking computers. The system processes 3 trillion transactions daily. It is now experiencing intermittent failures because no one else understands the error correction protocols. She built into the architecture. Kress felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Why did we not know this? Why were we not informed of our dependence on human personnel? Rill looked down at her notes. Because no one asked, Counselor. Humans were categorized as general support staff. Their individual contributions were never fully documented. They worked quietly, solved problems efficiently, and asked for little recognition. Over time, they became invisible in our systems. This is unacceptable. Kress clicked. Contact the human government. Demand they return their personnel immediately. Offer them compensation. Offer them better terms. Whatever they want. We have tried, Counselor, Vellner said quietly. Multiple times. Every communication to human space receives the same automated response. Humanity is no longer accepting communications from Council space. Do not attempt further contact. The chamber fell into stunned silence. They are ignoring us? A representative asked. Completely. It appears so, Vellner confirmed. Our ships cannot approach their borders. Any vessel that gets too close receives a warning message and is turned back by their defense fleet. No threats. No violence. Just a firm barrier. Kress stood, his full height imposing. Then we will send a delegation. A proper one. We will apologize for any misunderstandings. We will negotiate new terms. We will make this right. Over the next 2 weeks, the Council assembled its most skilled diplomats. They prepared offers of equal partnership, technology sharing, and formal apologies. They drafted new treaties that promised humanity respect and recognition. They even discussed giving humans a permanent seat on the Council itself. Ambassador Vellner led the delegation personally. His ship approached the human border, broadcasting peaceful intentions and requesting dialogue. The response came quickly. Council vessel, you are approaching human defensive space. Turn back immediately. This is your only warning, Elnor recorded a personal message. This is Counselor Velner. I wish to speak with Ambassador Taman or any human authority. We come seeking dialogue and reconciliation. Please, we acknowledge mistakes were made. Allow us to make amends. Silence. Then the automated response again. Humanity is no longer accepting communications from Council space. Turn back now. Velner's ship retreated. The delegation returned to Council space empty-handed. Meanwhile, the situation continued deteriorating. The Zoreth species, whose territory bordered human space, tried to blame the Pelkan species for the harsh terms that had driven humans away. Old rivalries resurfaced. Species that had cooperated for centuries began. Arguing over resources and responsibility, trade routes collapsed because the navigation systems humans had calibrated were failing. Ships got lost. Deliveries never arrived. Shortages began appearing on multiple worlds. The Quiller species, known for their patience, suggested trying again in a few months. Perhaps the humans just needed time to calm down. Perhaps their anger would fade, but Rill, studying the patterns, understood the truth. This was not anger. Anger was hot and loud. This was something colder, something more final. The humans had not left in rage. They had left in disappointment. And disappointment, once deep enough, became indifference. She pulled up the last recorded message from Taman before the human delegation departed. She had watched it dozens of times. Thank you for making your position clear. Not we will return, not we will resist. Just acknowledgement. The humans had finally seen clearly what they meant to the Council, and they had decided that relationship was no longer worth maintaining. 6 months after the departure, Cress sat alone in his chambers. Reports covered his desk. System failures. Medical emergencies. Economic decline. Species withdrawing from the Council. Everything was falling apart. He had believed humans needed the Council. He had believed they were dependent on the greater galactic community. But now he understood. The Council had built itself on human labor without even realizing it. They had taken and taken, never considering what they gave in return, and now the bill had come due. Outside his window, a transport ship drifted past, its engine sputtering. It needed human maintenance. It would not get it. None of them would. The humans were gone, and they were not coming back. 6 months had passed since humanity's departure, and the Council was dying. Not quickly, not dramatically, but with the slow certainty of a machine grinding itself to pieces. Junior Analyst Rill had been promoted 3 times as senior officials resigned in disgrace. Now she sat in strategy meetings that felt more like funeral preparations. We have lost 12 member species, she reported to the remaining Council leadership. They have withdrawn their participation and closed their borders. Another 8 are considering departure. Trade volume is down 74%. Medical crises are ongoing on 42 worlds. Cress, looking older and more tired than anyone had ever seen him, simply nodded. Continue. We are still searching for any human personnel who might have remained behind. So far we have found no one. It appears the evacuation was completely comprehensive. Possible, Velner muttered, his skin a dull gray of exhaustion. Surely someone stayed. Someone married to another species. Someone who did not receive the message? Someone, as if summoning him with words, a junior officer burst into the chamber. Counselors, we have found one. Human. On monitoring Outpost 7 in the Kepler sector, chamber fell silent. Then everyone spoke at once. Bring him here immediately, Crest demanded. Use any means necessary. We need him. 3 days later, Engineer Jahe stood in the Council chamber. He looked tired and thin, wearing a simple work uniform that had seen better days. He had been alone on the monitoring outpost for months. Finishing what he called one last project before returning home, the Council members stared at him like he was made of gold and medicine and salvation, all combined. Engineer Jahe Crest said, trying to sound friendly and failing, "We are grateful you have remained. We need your assistance. Our communications array has been failing. You designed the original system. Please, help us restore it." Jahe looked at the insectoid counselor with calm, tired eyes. Why should I? The question hung in the air. No one had expected it. Humans did not refuse. Humans helped. That was what they did. Because people are suffering, Vellner said, his skin showing pleading blue patterns. Because civilizations are collapsing. Because we need you. You needed us 6 months ago, too, Jaehee said quietly. You just did not realize it. Rill stepped forward. She had been studying human culture, trying to understand them. Please, she said softly, help us understand. Why did you leave? What did we do that was so terrible you would abandon everything? Jaehee looked at her. She was young, probably newer to the council, and she seemed genuinely confused. He decided to tell them. Not because it would change anything, but because someone should know. Sit down, he said. All of you. This will take time, they sat. These powerful beings who ruled galactic civilization. They sat and listened to one tired human engineer. Do you want to know what you did? Jaehee began. Let me tell you about my sister. Her name was Sunye. 3 years ago, she was on a colony transport with 200,000 other humans. They were going to establish a new settlement on the edge of human space. He paused, his hands clenching. Pirates attacked them. Not military vessels. Not some grand battle. Just criminals looking for cargo. The ship sent a distress signal. The council received it. Do you know what happened? No one answered.
Oh, nothing.
The request was classified as low priority because, and I quote from the official record, they are only humans. By the time anyone bothered to respond 4 days later, everyone was dead. And then the council billed Earth for the rescue mission that never came. Vellner's skin went white. Cress's mandibles stopped clicking, Jaehee continued, his voice steady but hard. That was not the only incident. For decades, you have used us. The Vrine dumped toxic waste on our colony worlds because it was cheaper than proper disposal. The Mordax conscripted our soldiers for wars we had no stake in. Millions died fighting for causes that were not ours. And when we asked for technology sharing, for equal participation, you said we had not earned it yet. He stood and walked to the central display, activating it. Images appeared. Human workers in dangerous conditions. Human colonies accepting waste shipments. Human soldiers in body bags. Human engineers working 20-hour shifts to fix problems other species created. We became your workforce. Your janitors. Your problem solvers. And you convinced yourselves this was natural. That we were good at service work. That we were happy being useful. Rill felt sick. She had never seen these reports. They had been buried in old files, categorized as routine matters. But the breaking point, Jaehee said, was not the exploitation. It was the contempt. When you delivered your demands 3 months ago, we finally understood. You did not see us as partners. You did not even see us as valuable servants. You saw us as things you owned, and things do not get to say no. He turned back to face them. So we left. Not in anger. Not seeking revenge. We simply decided we were done. Done being taken for granted. Done being invisible. Done being nothing? We did not mean Cress started. Yes, you did, Jaehee interrupted. You meant exactly what you did. Maybe not consciously. Maybe you told yourselves pretty stories about cooperation and mutual benefit, but your actions revealed the truth. And we saw it clearly. Vellner stood, his skin showing patterns of genuine remorse. What can we do? How can we make this right? Jaehee laughed, a bitter sound. Make it right. You cannot. Not now. Not for years. Decades. Maybe. Do you know what you need to do? You need to learn to function without us. You need to solve your own problems. You need to understand that help is earned through respect, not demanded through power. Will you help us with the communications array? Riel asked softly. Jaehee looked at her. She seemed sincere. Young and earnest and horrified by what she was learning. Yes, he said finally. I will fix your array, not because you deserve it, but because I am not like you. I do not leave people to suffer when I have the ability to help. Over the next 2 weeks, Jae-hee repaired the communications array. He worked silently, efficiently, accepting no payment, no thanks, no special treatment. Council members tried to talk to him, to ask questions, to understand. He answered briefly and moved on. When he finished, he packed his tools and prepared to leave. "Will you tell them?" Rill asked, meeting him at the transport bay. "Will you tell the other humans what you saw here? That some of us are trying to understand?" "They already know some of you are different," Jae-ha said. "That does not change what the council did. That does not erase the damage. Will humans ever come back?" Jae-hee paused at the transport door. "Maybe in a generation or two? When your civilization has learned to respect others instead of using them? When you approach as equals instead of masters? Maybe then." He boarded the transport and left, the last human the council would see for a very long time. Behind him, Rill returned to the council chamber. She had work to do, a civilization to rebuild. Not the old council that had used humans, but something new. Something better. If humanity was ever going to talk to them again, they needed to earn it. 2 years had passed since humanity closed its borders. Commander Insu stood on the bridge of the defense station that marked the boundary of human space. Watching the long-range sensors, his job was simple: monitor the border and ensure no unauthorized vessels entered human territory. It was quiet work. Most days, nothing approached. The council had learned that humans meant what they said. The few ships that did come close were usually refugees or desperate traders. Each case was evaluated individually. "Contact on sensors," his officer reported. "Single small vessel, approaching slowly. No weapons signatures. They are broadcasting a diplomatic identification." Two pulled up the details. It was a simple shuttle, barely capable of long-range flight. 1 occupant. Counselor Rill's identification code. He had heard of her through intelligence reports. Young, promoted rapidly after the old council leadership fell apart, known for trying to reform council practices. "What should we do, Commander?" the officer asked. Insu considered. The standing order was clear: turn away all council vessels. But something about this situation felt different. A counselor traveling alone in a shuttle that looked barely functional. That was not a military threat. That was someone making a personal gesture. Let her approach to communication range, but keep weapons ready. The shuttle came to a stop just outside the border. Insu opened a channel. "Council vessel, state your purpose." Rill's face appeared on screen. She looked tired but determined. "Commander Insu, I request permission to deliver a message. I do not ask to enter your space. I do not ask for anything except that you listen." "Speak," Insu said neutrally. Rill took a breath. 2 years ago, humanity left the council. You left because we treated you terribly. We used you, disrespected you, and took you for granted. Engineer Jae-hee helped us understand the depth of what we did. Since then, I and others have been working to change the council." Insu said nothing, just listened. "We cannot undo the past. We cannot bring back the people who died because we did not care enough to help them. We cannot return the years you spent serving us without proper recognition. We can only try to build something better." "Why are you telling me this?" Insu asked. "Because you deserve to know that we are trying. That some of us understand now. We do not ask for forgiveness. We do not ask you to return. We only ask that you remember we are working to be different. And perhaps someday when you are ready, we could talk. Not as the council and humanity. As equals." Insu looked at her face on the screen. He saw genuine regret there. Genuine effort. But he also remembered the reports he had read. The colony ship that died waiting for help. The soldiers who fell in council wars. The decades of being useful but never valued. "Counselor Rill," he said carefully, "I appreciate your message. I will forward it to our leadership. But I want you to understand something. Humanity did not leave because we were angry. We left because we finally saw clearly what we were worth to you. And we decided to be worth something to ourselves instead." "I understand," Rill said softly. "Good. Then you should also understand that rebuilding trust takes time. Generations, perhaps." The Council needs to prove through years of better behavior that it has changed. Words are easy. Actions matter. We know, Rill replied. That is why I came. Not to ask for anything. Just to say that we are trying, and we will continue trying, whether you ever speak to us again or not. Insu nodded slowly. Your message is noted. Return to Council space, Counselor. Safely. Rill's shuttle turned and departed. Insu watched it go, then sent a report to Earth. The leadership would decide what to do with the information. His job was just to guard the border. On Mars, former Ambassador Taman stood in front of a classroom of young students. They were training to be the next generation of human diplomats. Not to serve other species, but to represent humanity as equal partners with anyone who proved worthy of partnership. Today we discuss the events of 2 years ago, Taman said. Can anyone tell me why humanity left the Council? A young student raised her hand. Because they treated us badly. That is part of it, Taman agreed. But not the complete answer. They treated us badly for decades. Why did we finally leave when we did? Another student spoke up. Because we were ready. Because we had prepared. Because we finally decided we were worth more than they thought we were. Exactly, Taman smiled. The lesson is not about anger or revenge. It is about self-worth. For years, we let ourselves be used because we thought we needed the Council. We thought we needed their approval, their markets, their protection. But the truth was simpler. We needed to believe in ourselves. He pulled up a display showing human space. It had grown in 2 years. New colonies, new research stations, new trade agreements among human worlds. They had built a civilization that served their own needs first. A message came today from the Council, Taman continued. A counselor named Rill came to our border to apologize and tell us they are trying to change. What should we do? The students discussed among themselves. Finally, one spoke for the group. We should acknowledge it, but we should not rush back. They need to prove they have changed, not just say it. Taman nodded. Perhaps in 50 years or 100. When the Council has proven through consistent action that they respect all species equally, we can talk again. But this time, we talk as partners. As equals, or we do not talk at all. He saved Rill's message in the diplomatic archives. Maybe someday future ambassadors would use it as a starting point for renewed contact. Or maybe not. Either way, humanity would be fine. On Earth, Captain Sang-hee stood at the observation deck of a station orbiting her homeworld. She was old now, her hair gray, her movements slower. But her eyes were still sharp as she watched ships come and go below her. Behind her, the station hummed with activity. Human scientists conducting research for human benefit. Human engineers building projects humans needed. Human artists creating works that celebrated human culture. No one was being used. No one was being taken for granted. A young officer approached. Captain, the Council situation report is ready. Summarize it, Sang-hee said, not turning from the window. The Council has stabilized somewhat. They have implemented new equality regulations. Several species report improved treatment, but they are still struggling. Their economy is 30% smaller than before. Many systems still do not work properly without human maintenance, and they want us to return and fix it? No, Captain. That is what is interesting. They are not asking for help anymore. They are trying to solve their own problems, slowly, with difficulty. But they are trying. Sang-hee smiled slightly. Good. Let them try. Let them learn what it means to be self-sufficient. Maybe in a few generations they will understand what partnership actually means. She thought about her brother, dead in a council war long ago. She thought about all the humans who had given so much to species that never appreciated them. The council could not bring those people back. Could not undo that harm. But maybe, just maybe, they could become something better. And if they did, if they truly changed, then perhaps humanity might consider talking to them again. Not as servants returning to masters, but as one civilization greeting another with respect. Until then, humanity would continue building its own future, free, independent, valuable because they valued themselves. The silence they had left behind had been their final lesson to the council. A lesson about the cost of taking someone for granted, about the price of contempt, about the weight of consequences, and out in council space. Species were finally learning what humans had always known: that every person, every species, every civilization deserves dignity and respect, not because of what they can do for you, but because they exist. It had taken humanity's departure to teach that lesson. It had taken silence to make them listen. And now, in the quiet that followed, maybe something better could grow.